Hello, people of the internet. Welcome to the Two Morons podcast. I'm Dalton.
I'm Josh.
All right. And we're getting started. Today, we're going to be talking about, at least to start off, well, we'd like to, bring up a few points on legalization of marijuana. Josh, got anything to start off?
Well, I really think we're heading in the right direction in the U.S. on legalizing it.
I think we are too. Even looking at the map, the maps of all the states that have been legalized and where they're going, it's that's a pretty good percentage of legalized states. It's definitely growing. I wish Kansas would.
Yeah, I was going to say
jump on
that.
The train, but
I mean, we're in the wrong state for pro legalization.
Yeah.
Kansas is probably
Kansas is gonna be like the last state to legalize it. But it's like there are a lot of concerning topics or concerning misinformation that people have. Like, for example, you were talking earlier about tar has actually. There's more tar in marijuana, like equal amounts of marijuana compared to cigarettes. But
there's four times more tar.
4 times more tar. But I think we could, that can be a little misleading because how many people do you see chain smoking joints, like joint after joint after joint after joint, and go through 2 packs of joints in a day? It doesn't it's less than. People will sit there and just smoke cigarette, light a cigarette with another cigarette, and continue,
Well, yeah, just like how I was. I was a chain smoker on tobacco, and, you go through left and right. And you're right. It's about how much quantity there is. You smoke one joint, you're done.
Yeah.
And you usually don't smoke it every day. For most people, because you got to go to work.
A lot of people are not daily users. A lot of people might save it for the weekend, or their weekend whenever they don't have any responsibilities. They're just like, yeah, time to relax, time to hang out, And I don't see a problem with legalization. I don't understand why people are so caught up on it. It's been proven at this point that it's safer than alcohol. It's safer than tobacco. There's no reason why it would be illegal when these other things are legal. And the medical benefits, like, for example, the Parkinsons. I watched a video of a guy who had Parkinsons, right? And that's, that's the one where you don't have control of your muscles, right?
Yes.
So he's sitting there, he's twitching, he's having a real hard time. And he just can't do anything. He has this like implant from like his, like, uses his heart to stimulate the brain, like the motor cortex, I believe, and kind of normalize and get a rhythm so that he's not constantly shaking. And he turns that on, and he's still got twitches. But then he just like hits a joint, and 15 seconds later, he's just like, yeah, and I feel great. No shaking. It's just gone.
That's amazing, and that is one good thing about legalization. Mm-hmm. And while we're talking about that, there's actually 4 types of legalizations they have. We got fully legalized. You can go out, buy a joint or any type of THC. Then we got the medical one where you have to get a medical license. You need it for some medical reason. Emotional, physical, or you're dying of cancer, which marijuana has use. It's great pain
marijuana.
reliever too.
It's a great pain reliever. It's even been proven, or it's been studies have shown that it slows cancerous mutations or cancerous cells. It'll slow down the progression. It's not a cure. I don't think cancer has a cure. I highly doubt there will ever necessarily be a cure. But if you can use this very easily attainable plant that is proven to slow the process and just make life generally easier when you want it to be, why wouldn't you?
Exactly.
Why would you want to force people to be in pain?
And that's why there's also states that have not fully legalized, just decriminalize it.
I mean, but even like the entire West Coast is legalized. Even the legalized states, like fully legalized, if you have medical, you can still get a medical license upon it's not just all recreational. Medical, you actually get even cheaper deals. It makes it easier.
Well, you can go to a pharmacy and pick it up.
I don't know about a pharmacy. I think they're all still dispensaries, but I'm not 100%.
Well, I don't live down there.
I've also never, had the medical license. But I mean, it's all at the very least. I think every state should be decriminalized. You know, if jail time should be reduced. You know, we've talked about there are some medical benefits. There's some misleading facts about the medical or, you know, just general effects of pot use. And there's also a lot of misinformation about the effect it has on communities and society as a whole. I mean, one of the major like effects is policing is there is a metric shit ton of arrests regarding marijuana. And it just doesn't, it's a waste of police resources. It's a waste of taxpayer money. It's just a waste.
We're paying for people to be thrown in prison for just a little bit. And that we have to pay for food and stuff. And talking about some of the misrepresentation. You remember DARE?
Yeah, DARE. DARE was awful. This is your brain. This is your brain on drugs. Oh, really? Yeah, sure.
I don't believe you on that one.
Yeah, I'm not buying it.
But they had a story at DARE. The DARE I went to. It was a small town. The school's not even there anymore. But the story was a babysitter got high babysitting. Mm-hmm. And parents came home and they said, "Oh, where's the baby? Oh, the baby's asleep. I put the turkey in the oven." We don't have a turkey. And the baby was in the oven. That was a totally fabricated lie.
Completely fictional. There's
no reports, nothing.
No person high on pot is going to be putting a baby in the oven. It's just not going to happen. You know?
Some people were too lazy to put a pizza in the oven. Yeah. It doesn't affect you that way.
No. It doesn't completely, you know, it's not going to completely ruin all judgment or sense of your surroundings, you know? It's like the amount of shit that would have to be going on in your head to rationally pick up a baby and put them in the oven, like, you have to be completely delusional.
And marijuana doesn't
do that.
Even though it's a hallucinogen, you would have to be taking some acid, mushrooms, or something like that.
I think that you're going to be hard pressed to find something. You know, maybe some bath salts might do it, but just some like LSD. I highly doubt somebody on LSD is putting a baby in the oven either. You know, I just don't believe it.
But my point is, that is actually a fabricated story. There is no legal report of that ever happening.
Yep. I believe it.
It was made up to scare people.
Absolutely. I mean, they make up a lot of stuff. They you know, it's like, I mean, even these, you know, people, you know, going back to people posting or talking about the tar that's in pot, or it's like, oh, there are more carcinogens in pot than there are in cigarettes. It's like, yeah, but pot also slows down cancer. It also is a bronchodilator. It helps, if you inhale it fully, it helps breathe easier. You know, the bronchodilator, you know, at the bottom, I think bottom of your lungs is where they get absorbed. It helps you breathe. It's like having an inhaler. You know, it's not, and you know, if you're not chain smoking joints, or, you know, bowl after bowl after bowl, the chances of the tar being even that much greater than if you were, you know, smoking cigarettes, because cigarettes are an actually chemically addictive thing. You know, they are chemically addictive, just like alcohol or heroin or whatnot. It's like you have actual withdrawal. With pot, if you want to stop, if it's hurting you, you just stop.
I'm pretty sure that probably over 90% of people that have done marijuana would honestly say they would never have another desire to do it again once they quit.
Yeah.
I mean, the only addiction marijuana could be is emotionally or mentally addictive. Yep. But it's not as mentally addictive as sugar, alcohol, caffeine, or tobacco. Yeah. And some of those, alcohol, tobacco, and sugar, also are chemically addictive. So you're not going to get addicted to marijuana. Now, right here this is actually pulling off a website, SNOPES, Snopes.com. Here we go. But recently, studies found no link between marijuana and increased risk of lung cancer.
Yeah.
according to Dr. Hal Morgenstern,
Hal Morgenstern.
Morgenstern,
Yeah.
a University of Michigan epidemiologist.
Epidemiologist. Something like that.
We just butchered that shit.
Absolutely, 100%. We're wonderful human beings.
Now, with understanding this, there's no found links. There's not a study that's found it. That doesn't mean it could or couldn't.
Yeah, I mean...
So when we look at these studies, we got to understand how they come from. But that looks positive.
But yeah, it also, it's obviously it's going to take time to, to get the... but, I mean, at the same time, I was just about to say it was going to take time to get the right amount of data and information, and, you have to feed it all and whatnot. You have to... you have to look it all over. But at the same time, people have been smoking pot for forever.
Yes.
So it's like it's pretty easy to find some 80-year-old that's smoking pot. It's like, okay, well, we're gonna look at you.
You can find the same thing with other drugs.
And people were so focused for a while on well, how come it's like if it was medically viable, the U.S. would have been researching it. Except it was a Class A substance, Class 1 substance. We couldn't do medical research on it. It was very difficult or not possible at all to do it. But I believe a country like Israel, I believe, was leading the medical research for marijuana for years, even while it was completely illegal, before any state in the United States had even decriminalized. That other countries were researching, and we could clearly see the studies. That's what I think prompted the big movement. It's like, well, these studies clearly prove that it's all a bunch of bull. There's no adverse effects. I mean, or there's the adverse effects are significantly less than what we were led to believe as children.
Yes, and also if you're worried about some of the adverse effects of smoking it, by all means, don't smoke it. You can legally buy it as edibles or vape juice.
Exactly.
I don't like vape myself because I swear it gave me pneumonia.
Yeah.
But there's many different reasons that could have happened.
I think you were doing something wrong. I think it was your coils and your mod, and you just didn't have it set right.
And it was a sub-ohm. I was getting a whole bunch of vapor. I don't know. Maybe. And it just could have been the season. I could have caught it.
I'm no vape
I had
expert.
a whole bunch of people coughing where I was working. I could have caught sickness that way.
But if you're worried about the tar or the cancer or any potential cause of cancer, just edibles. Or drips. Yeah, exactly. Any type of, even vaping still reduces that of, like, well, I mean, we don't necessarily have all the studies on vaping, so we can't confirm that it's...
I'm pretty sure
I believe there are less carcinogens, aren't there, than the actual plant?
Well, yes, because you're just extracting the THC or extracting the nicotine.
I mean, yeah, extracting...
So those are two... The chemicals are just there, but there's many different problems, and I'm pretty sure some of the problems we've been seeing actually coming up is vape is damaging, and it might be all vape is damaging. Because we've seen a lot of problems, and there was a CEO that stepped down that was the head of one of these vape industries, and he stepped down after people started showing up dead.
Yeah.
Because...
Well...
I mean, that's a lot. Is your product killing someone?
Yeah, I don't necessarily know that, like... I wouldn't necessarily think that vaping as a whole is damaging. I mean, obviously, I think inhaling anything that you're probably not supposed to inhale, or that's, not... Oxygen is probably, or nitrogen, atmospheric. It's probably not great, but at the same time, inhaling a vapor, and it's not just THC. You're not just extracting out the THC. You also extract out terpenes, different cannabinoids that they might put in back with the THC because of medical effects or just flavor or whatnot. And then obviously you have your vape juice itself, the VG and PG and PEG, whatever, to stabilize, I think that and whatnot. Actually, but that's the main problems that I've seen in the past. I think that you talked about is that the main problems were the flavorings. People were putting in artificial sweeteners that were known to cause lung problems. Like we had in the 60s, they were 100% certain these will give you popcorn lung. You will get seriously injured or die from this. And they're like, well, it's FDA approved, so we're just gonna throw it in some vape juice.
And that's laziness.
It's like, that's just laziness.
I mean, it could have took 5 seconds.
Not even laziness. That is just misconduct and it's just wrong. Like, there's no excuse for it.
And, okay, so let's talk about that popcorn lung. Okay, why it's called popcorn lung? There was people working in this popcorn factory, and they added this artificial sweetener. You can eat it, fine, but once it vaporizes and you inhale it, it destroys your lungs. And people at this factory was getting sick. You remember the scare where you're not supposed to open up and sniff your bag of popcorn once it comes out of the microwave? That is why. And the same sweeteners and artificial flavors, FDA approved, mind you. It's not approved for breathing it in.
Not approved for
gets
inhalation.
Brought over to vapes.
Yeah, absolutely. Somebody failed to do the research, or maybe they did do the research and they're just like, yeah, we're going to ignore it for now. I don't know why they would open themselves up to lawsuits like that, but I would assume it's just incompetence on their part.
No, it's not incompetence. It's because we got people sitting around that are not doctors making a chemical product to be taken in a way that it's just they didn't know better, and it is their liability. They 100%. Saved money by not hiring proper doctors or research, and that's cost people. That's one reason I just don't like vape. But there's so much you don't know on where that product's come from. True. FDA has been cracking down on this the last couple years.
They have been making some huge advancements. Like, as soon as that popcorn lung, it's like people were all over that. The FDA, it's literally their job to make sure things that we put in our bodies are safe. So if they're regulating a market like tobacco or alcohol or food, they're also, if you bring a new product like vape, obviously they can't put in the regulations if they don't know what to regulate. So it's unfortunate that people had to get hurt for them to realize, but if the people adding the flavoring to their vape juices had just at least bothered to look up the whether or not those chemicals have adverse effects with lungs, it would have made all the difference. But the FDA has to step in once again to help people not die. And I think the FDA is doing the best job that they can. It's a relatively fresh market. There's until something bad happens, it's difficult to predict where the next problem is going to pop up.
Exactly. And like I said, you can take it different ways. And if you still want to smoke it, you can make it into like a shisha, where you use a hookah, which is a large water bong. And the water bong pretty much takes a lot of that tar out. So there's different ways you can take it and be perfectly fine. Right. But over here, even though some of the things I said seemed kind of negative on it, I'm pro legalization.
Absolutely.
It should be medical and recreational. I mean, there's no problem against it.
I don't see why. Like, I understand why some states might not want to go to recreational, but at the very least medical. Why are you denying medical care to people who could clearly use it? But also it's like even with recreational, it's like you recreationally drink alcohol. That's so much worse. Your actions on like DUIs. Just just as just one example, DUIs for alcohol are 1,000 times worse than DUIs for pot, right? Like the chances of you getting in an accident when you're drunk are significantly higher than getting in an accident when you're stoned. See, and I'm not advocating. Advocating for driving while you're stoned. But studies have proven that it's at the very least it's safer than driving drunk under the influence of alcohol. So if you're going to allow people to get drunk, why would it's like the negative effects for marijuana don't outweigh the positive effects. Whereas I would argue the negative effects for alcohol kind of do.
Well, tobacco is definitely the negative effects of tobacco. There's not too much positive effects of tobacco, and one thing people say, "Oh, I haven't had a cigarette. I need a cigarette to calm down." That is how you know you're addicted to something, when it's like tobacco, which is a stimulant.
Yep.
It stimulates you, but you need that to calm down.
Yep.
There's the problem. Weed is not like that.
Weed is not like
and
that.
I guess we've probably nailed that one in the coffin. Weed is not like the other drugs. And one thing we totally disagree on, me and Dalton here, is how old you should be. I say you should be 21.
I say 18. I think the drinking age should be reduced to 18 as well. I've seen, like, just looking at the articles from other countries, like, for example, you know, European countries or whatever, Canada, wherever, you know, across the border, any border, wherever. It's like there are a lot of places like, yeah, you can start drinking alcohol from the age of 3. But it's, you know, also that brings me to another thing I was thinking about earlier is it's all about information.
Yes.
If you correctly educate people as to the side effects, and, you know, scare tactics don't work. You know, the more you try to push somebody like, oh, this is going to kill you, the more you start lying to people about the effects, the more likely it's going to cause problems. If you educate people in a way that they understand the risks before taking action, before they have a chance to be exposed to it in a harmful way, it's gonna make it easier as a whole for the population to, you know, deal with the problem.
100% agree on that. And that's called risk management.
Absolutely.
A lot of people don't really have too much risk management, but if you ever have time, go to one of those courses and risk management. And you're right. It's like when I'm raising my daughter. Mm-hmm. I tell her, you can't do that, and this is why.
Yeah.
It's not, you can't do that. Why? Because I'm your parent. No, I tell you exactly why.
Exactly.
You do that, you're going to get hit by that Mack truck coming down.
Exactly. The because I said so is not really a good argument. Or because, you know, lying to people when we have access to the internet. You know, it's so easy to find out the truth. Or you know, I'm hesitating saying that because there are people like flat earthers and anti-vaxxers that are like, we know the truth. It's like, okay, well, you're just an idiot, but I'll allow you to breathe. You know, it's they're just, you know, they're speaking their minds. They're like, oh, but we know the truth. But it's like, if you actually know how to seek out valid information, the internet is a resource of the mass of human knowledge. And it's so easy to find these other countries that are doing research or other, you know, peer-reviewed studies and whatnot to learn actually see the full effects or full downsides, pros and cons, and you can judge for yourself. I mean, even if you go to, like, even not talking about weed or tobacco or alcohol, the harder drugs, if you go to, like, for example, there are some subreddits on reddit.com about drugs. It's all about people trying to keep other people safe with drugs. There are some drug subreddits where it's like, we can't stop you from using drugs, but we can put information here so that you will know what not to do.
Oh, exactly.
And it's just like that, just small amount of information. It's not small. There's a vast amount of information, but just like that information is readily available. So if you lie to people, tell them if you smoke pot, your lungs are going to explode, or if you smoke pot, you're going to get in a car accident and drive off a cliff. You know, it's like people can look it up. It's like, what are the chances of that actually happening? Very slim. They're going to be like, okay, well then all of the other things you told me about are probably wrong too, you know? And unless we teach people how to seek out the actual valid information that they need, then we have a systemic problem.
You are very right on that. And another thing that I want to point out is, you tell a 3-year-old you can't have that. You tell someone you can't have that, they want it more. Yeah. And not explaining even makes it worse.
Yeah.
Now, there's another subject about legalization. Is it Norway? Is it Norway that legalized
Portugal?
all drug? Or
Portugal, I believe, is what we found.
Why don't we look that up? Sure. Okay, this country has decriminalized, not legalized, decriminalized everything. So if you got caught doing some drug that is hard, they help you go through rehab and get clean. And this country is actually doing wonders. They are stopping a lot of these overdoses and addictions by helping the people, not throwing them in jail.
Yep.
And that's what we need to do.
And that's it right there, right there. Portugal is the first country that has decriminalized the possession of small amounts of drugs. Every drug.
So if you're a drug dealer there, you're not safe, but...
Yeah, but just possession, like that, and I think that's how it should be. You know, if somebody is in possession of a small amount of drugs, like it's clearly personal use, even if it's heroin or meth, you know, it's like you could, instead of throwing them in prison, and
you get
potentially, essentially capping their value in life, or the capping the where they can reach in life. You know, you're putting a real damper. Prison or jail of any kind is just a huge setback for something so minor. It just doesn't make sense. The punishment doesn't fit the crime. You know, it's like, obviously if somebody is dealing heroin or meth or, you know, cocaine, some of the harder, you know, drugs that are clearly killing people, you know, bath salts, somebody's dealing that, obviously put them in jail. You know,
dealing is different than using.
They are actively ruining or negatively affecting societies and the communities that they are in. So obviously you're going to punish them in a way that fits the crime. I think jail time or prison time for
dealing, of course,
for any type of trafficking is yes, absolutely. But if you're just in possession, like you've got a gram of, I don't know, meth, it's like, who cares? Who really cares? It's like, if a cop comes across that, it's like, okay, I'm gonna recommend you for some type of rehabilitation.
We're going to help you
if we actually
help.
had rehabilitation centers that focused on, you know, the people had more access to these rehabilitation centers, which I'm not saying they don't. There are a lot of them. There are quite a few.
But is it affordable for everyone in America?
It
Not in
definitely
America.
isn't.
I mean, it's a small fortune to send them somewhere good. But drug, this legalization that they're doing is good. But it's all based off of breaking the cycle.
Yes.
Breaking the cycle. If you arrest someone for drugs, put them in jail, now they come out, their life sucks even worse. They just got out of jail, lost their job, have no money, and they want to feel good.
Yeah.
Humans want to feel good, so they go back to drugs. It's a cycle.
Exactly.
We got to break the cycle.
Exactly. I mean, but you know, they might not even. It's entirely possible, at least with the U.S. Prison system, they get put in prison and then they don't actually come off of the drugs. The smuggling drugs into prison, getting contraband into prison, is a huge market.
Yeah.
And so it's like they could be put in a you know, pretty decent security prison, and they're still going to have access to drugs. It doesn't make sense. It's like you're not helping the situation, but also it's like, well, you're trying to say, oh, drugs are bad. You're trying to get this person off of drugs, and so what do? Let's lock them in a cell, you know, in an unfamiliar environment, pretty shitty environment. And I don't know anybody that actually enjoys jail. Then again, I don't think I know anybody.
Well,
that's
I've never been to jail.
I've been to prison, but it's like it's like, nobody's gonna enjoy that, you know. So it's like you're putting them in an unfamiliar, shitty situation for having drugs, and you're telling them, okay, yeah, don't use drugs. It's like, that's the worst way you could possibly do it. That is the worst possible way to rehabilitate. Prisons are supposed to rehabilitate, and they're not doing that.
Well, we got to look at our system. Our system is based off of the old thing. You did something wrong, goodbye.
Yes.
Then it can come back out. While you look at some of these other countries, their prison system is based off of rehabilitation.
I think I saw a story. Norway. This has nothing to do with drugs, but it's the prison system. It was, I believe a guy committed murder. Like he had a job with cutting down trees with a chainsaw. You know, he committed murder using that chainsaw. Went to prison, but it wasn't like a maximum security prison. It was like a prison, right? He serves a bit of his sentence, and then he gets a job, and then he can actually leave the prison to do his job, but he has to come back before curfew, right? He has a curfew. So what job do you think he had?
Lumberjack.
Lumberjack. Yeah, 100%. That's.
I know how to use a chainsaw.
He committed murder with a chainsaw, and went to work while in jail or while in his rehabilitation facility. He had a job using a chainsaw. Well, that's a little, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But
do you know how to use a chainsaw? Okay, that is pretty dang funny. I mean, in America, you can work to doing that. I mean, you can always get out of maximum and into a lower level one. I had a relative that temporarily married a person in prison for murder. And I don't know how she met this person, if it was online or when he was out working at one of these
got a pen pal or something,
Yeah. Well, he got down to lower level.
Mm-hmm.
And he was able to go out and work a job and had to be back. But, our prison system doesn't do stuff. And I feel sorry for the guy because he's ex-military. The reason he murdered someone is probably military training. And the reason he's going to have trouble readjusting is military training and being locked in prison, being so disassociated. He may be back in prison, and hopefully he isn't, but I'm glad I'm not his brother-in-law.
Yeah.
Based off some things I've heard.
I mean, it's a vicious cycle. People that get in prison, then they get out of prison, and they have to pay back fines or whatnot. They have to get a job, and it's difficult to find a job when you have that on your record. So they have to get a job, then they have to pay back, and if they don't pay back, or if they don't pay back fines or whatnot, whatever they have to pay, then what do you do? You throw them back in prison. It's like they're struggling to find the money, and so it's like they don't want to go back to jail, so they need to do something. But a lot of people just think like they're in a rut. They think they're stuck. They think there's no way out. In order to succeed, they feel they have to resort to criminal activities, and it's just. Some reformation is definitely needed, whether it be drugs or prison system or education system, the whole thing, everything needs...
It needs to be rebuilt. We're based off of so many different old ways.
Yes. Especially now, like I said, with the internet, we have this vast knowledge, like all of humanity's collective knowledge at the touch of a button, click, tap of a finger, we have it in our pockets, in our cell phones. We have it all. We should be able to use it to advance, but the laws in the past our founders couldn't possibly have predicted society today. No, it's just they couldn't have done it.
We can't predict what's going to happen in the next 100 years. Not. We know it's going to be amazing. But look how fast technology has gone.
We can see how quickly technology is advancing. I mean, they've got everything nowadays, and we've got like the advancements, and whether it be everybody's all big on AI now. Oh, AI, AI is going to be huge, and AI is going to be huge. It's definitely getting sizable. It's or whether it be neural networking or even just like not even AI, just interfacing with the human brain. It's like people have developed better ways to scan neurons and read the data coming off of the human brain, and then at that point it's just a matter of mapping that and being able to interface that truly with a computer. And it's coming. It's here. Like we have the interface. The interfaces are being experimented with as we speak. They have them. They have developed them. Then it's just a matter of trying to get people to figure out what we can do with them, And there's just so much. Nobody could have predicted the vast amounts of information we would have at our fingertips. Nobody could have predicted, but it's like even then again, all of our drug problems, the marijuana legalization, this wasn't back when the Constitution was founded. The Constitution doesn't say anything about pot. That'd be hilarious.
Well, I think they might have used some back then.
The only reason it's illegal now is because of Reagan.
Yes, and tobacco industry, paper industry,
war on drugs. That whole push for, But then again, the war on drugs was also a guise because the war on drugs, the people that were supposedly fighting the war on drugs were also the same people pushing the drugs. So, it's like the CIA has been confirmed to, they would put drugs in whether it be other countries or our own countries. They push drugs. Then there's been confirmed that these pharmaceutical companies are overselling to pharmacies that don't have the population around them to support the amounts that they're getting. People are getting, these pharmacies are getting 500 times the amount, with a population within 100 mile radius, the population is like something like 30,000, and they're getting 500,000. They're getting pills to match 500,000 worth of population.
The doctors don't care anymore. You just look at it like medicine I've been given to doctor didn't care. There was a way I could have fixed something, but instead, here, have the pill, and that's it, gone, goodbye.
Yeah.
I mean, and when when I say fix something, I'm not talking about voodoo shit, dancing around trying to cure cancer. I'm talking about regular diet changes.
Fitness, health, basic dieting, it could change a lot. And people are just like, oh, here, take this pill. But it's like, it becomes even worse when it's something like opioids, which are vastly addictive. It's a huge crisis we have, and it's the worst it's ever been, isn't it? I believe it is. Did it used to be? I don't know. I don't remember.
I don't know. I can't say
remember if it's gotten better in the past decade or gotten worse. I haven't looked that up. But it's like that opioid crisis of doctors just writing fake scripts for opioids. It's like, oh, somebody's like, oh, I got back pain. Cool. Here, have some Vicodin. It's like that's not. You can't just do that. Like to the point where they've had to start regulating like the bigger markets. Like they obviously have to regulate. It's like if you're a first time medical, like if you're a first time patient in that medical facility, they're just like, we will not prescribe you opiates of any kind because we have never seen you before.
Well, the doctor needs to be smart about it.
But then then you have those smaller pharmacies in some rural areas or some that's not, somewhat out of the way. People might forget about. Then they're just like, oh yeah, you want some heroin? You want some heroin? You want some heroin? It's like, because that's what it is, prescription heroin.
Well, yes. I mean, going back to Reagan, he hated hippies, so he attacked weed. He did not like black communities, so he pumped drugs into them and started a war. And that started a vicious cycle. And, that's a problem. I hate to talk bad about the United States government, but the United States government has attacked these black communities, causing a cycle. Or these other poor communities. I would say black, but there are some other white or minority poor communities that were attacked. But mostly it was Reagan attacked black communities and hippies.
Yeah.
And that started a vicious cycle.
He very much linked the two communities somewhat together and made it very difficult to they just ruined it. He ruined those communities. It's like that. There's, I don't understand what it is with the United States government, or rather, wealthy United States individuals, because we can't say it's all the government's fault. Big corporations, like pushing pharmacies and pushing drugs and whatnot, raising the price of a cancer of drugs for people who have cancer from $5 a pill to $700 a pill. Like, you're an asshole. What's wrong with you? Why do people feel the need to attack? Like, at the very least, why do people in the government or people in high places feel the need to attack people in their own country? Like, I just say, why do you feel the need to attack other human beings? Period. Like, why bother? What do you gain from putting others down like that? Putting people in a situation.
Not caring. Yeah. It's like, why would you make a product that causes cancer? Most people that are going to die, like 2 jumbo jets dying each day, like tobacco. Yeah. Why would you do that and not have a problem?
Yeah.
This because they are able to dissociate themselves from other people on that. It's a number. It's a number. And you're like, oh, well, I made 50,000 over here on these bottles of pills.
People are just they're just bowing and praying to the almighty dollar, getting that, and a guise of capitalism. It's like, oh, capitalism is great. Capitalism does this. Capitalism does that. It's like, I think you're confusing capitalism with just basic commerce. Ancient Egyptians had trade. If capitalism went away, trade wouldn't go away. You'd still have corporations. Well, it just a bit more control, a bit more regulation. A bit more regulation is all you need.
Well, there's some things you got to understand. if capitalism is the driving force of any innovation in the world right now. If you got rid of all the dollar and do stuff like Star Trek, where everyone was equal, no one made more money.
Capitalism has nothing to do with the dollar. The dollar is not inherently capitalism.
That's not what I was saying.
I know, but you said if you got rid of the dollar. You don't have to get rid of the dollar to get rid of capitalism.
Well, no. I'm trying to make a point here.
Okay.
If capitalism does a push, if you get rid of the dollar, meaning you don't really have capitalism. Your goal is not to make more money. The question is, will there be these people striving to be these doctors or top scientists if they're not going to get something more? Now, some people will. I mean, Albert Einstein probably would have always been a scientist, even if he couldn't make money doing that.
There are always going to be people doing it. But yeah, you have to give monetary incentives to these things. But I wasn't talking about removing money. Money is not the problem. Regulation on capitalism and corporations are the problem. And I think one of the main problems is we have capitalism when we have our government. And people think that our government shouldn't regulate corporations. Some people legitimately think that to be true. Like we have right now, it very much seems like these billion-dollar corporations with their lobbying and their money and their all this, they are basically writing laws. And capitalism, these corporations should not control the government. They should not be regulating the government. The government should be regulating them. You know, it's working the opposite of the way it should work.
Exactly.
In a society that benefits the majority of the people, that's what our government is for. Our government is for the people. It's supposed to benefit the people, the mass population, not the select few who have won.
I mean, that's a separate podcast.
That's a completely separate podcast. But I mean, it's all related. It's all.
We could probably make a whole pod series about fixing the world's governments.
There's a lot of problems in our country, and I'm not saying I hate the United States. I don't hate the United States.
I wouldn't want to live anywhere else.
Yeah, I mean. I would want to live in a few other places, but you know, I have no problems living here. I have a good life here. I like it. I enjoy it. There's nothing, you know. It's like I talk about all these problems with the main government. It's like I'm not necessarily affected on an individual level as much as some other people might be, but it's like I can still recognize the problems. I can recognize the faults. And there are two types of people. There are the type of people that are like, we love this country. The United States is the best country on the planet. No exceptions. There's nothing wrong with it. Done. A conversation over. And then there are people who love the country are like, yes, I love this country. We need to fix its flaws. Because if you truly love something, you want to make it better, right?
Yes, and that's what I was going to go into.
And we have this split.
If you love the country, you should speak out about stuff you think is wrong, needs to be fixed. Mind you, I'm a United States veteran. I deployed for this country. I don't regret it. But if people stop saying, hey, I think this is wrong, and just let it go because you're supposed to love your country. If you love your country, you can speak out and say, hey, this is wrong. Now, there's countries out there you can't do that.
Yeah.
If you speak out like that, you'll be thrown in prison or executed.
100%.
So we're lucky we live in America.
We're lucky we live here, and I think people, and I hate to bring up politics, not really, but I'm bringing it up. It's like I think people got a bit too complacent, thinking things were good, and things weren't amazing, but things were acceptable. And then we got this moron as a president. It's like the current moron Donald Trump is now our leader, and he's making some interesting decisions that have absolutely no benefit to the United States whatsoever. He only seems to benefit himself, but there's still people that are legitimately fighting and agree and are fighting for what he stands for. It's like, oh, he's the best. He is like the second coming of Jesus. It's like you're just actively ignoring facts.
On that note, I think we're going to make our next podcast about Trump. We're going to end this one right now. I'm Josh.
I'm Dalton.
This is a Two Morons podcast.
Thanks for listening.